Welcome everyone to this webinar we're having today. Take your leadership to the next level, featuring a panel of Maryland Realtors members who are active not only locally and with the state, but with the National Association of Realtors as well. We have a Q&A box at the bottom and a chat function. Please put your questions into the Q&A box, not into the chat, so that our panelists here can address them and answer them at the most appropriate time during this presentation. And now at this opportunity, I want to introduce to you our moderator, Shamika Price. Shamika is an engaging broker and real estate developer of capital structures real estate, known for her extensive market knowledge and her unmatched dedication to all of her clients and peers. Shamika is also a recognized and respected community leader, serving as the past president of Prince George's County Association of Realtors and currently serving on their board of chairing and the Community Service Committee. She also serves on the executive board of Maryland Realtors and the Prince George's Chamber of Commerce, as well as the chairwoman for Women in Business Committee, just to name a few. She has many certifications, including the recent C2EX designation. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to Shamika, who can introduce the rest of this esteemed panel. Shamika.
Thank you, Dan, for that. So thank everyone for joining us here today. I am the chair of NAR Engagement Task Force for Maryland Realtors, and I'm excited to see such a great turnout. Today, we're going to provide a wealth of information and resources to increase your leadership opportunities with the National Association of Realtors on committees and task force. Our panelists are well equipped and experienced with lots of knowledge, and today they're going to share it all. Please use the Q&A option, as Dan mentioned, to leave all your questions and comments. This meeting is being recorded for your convenience, and it will be shared on Maryland Realtors YouTube channel as early as next week. So without further ado, I introduce to you my panelists. First up, I have Dee Dee Miller. Dee Dee is currently serving as the immediate past president of Maryland Realtors, as well as a member on numerous other committees and task force groups locally and with NAR. She is the 2022 vice chair of the large state forum for NAR and looks forward to continuing her volunteer journey for years to come. Chuck Caskey, he's Maryland CEO. He was elevated to his position in October 2015 after having served as organization's top in-house legal officer for 10 years. Prior to joining Maryland Realtors, Chuck was engaged in a private practice of law, served as counsel to several committees of the Maryland General Assembly, and was Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Howard County, Maryland. He earned the Realtor Certified Executive designation from the National Association of Realtors in 2010, was C2EX endorsed in 2020, and earned the At Home with Diversity and ePro certifications in 2021. Up next, we have Allison Dozapa. Allison has been a Realtor since 2006. She is a 2012 Maryland Realtors Leadership Academy graduate and served as president of Howard County Association of Realtors in 2015 and 2016. Allison currently serves as a legislative committee and is a past chair for a presidential advisory group, an RPAC trustee, and co-chair of the annual conference committee at Maryland Realtors. She received the National Association of Realtors 30 Under 30 Award in 2012 and is a 2017 NAR Leadership Academy graduate. Allison currently sits on NAR's RPAC Major Investment Council and has previously served on RPAC Participation Council and local and state issues policies on the national level. She is a 10-year major investor and a 4-year President's Circle member for RPAC. Up next, I have Bill Armstrong. Bill, with 39 years of experience in the real estate industry, Bill has been active at all 3 levels of realtor organizations. He served 3 terms, 2011 to 2013, as treasurer of the National Association of Realtors. Prior to becoming treasurer, Bill served for a number of years on the finance committee at NAR. He was instrumental in the kickoff of the Reserve Investment Advisory Board in 2009. He played a significant role in the formation of NAR's Association Investment Program at NAR, and he helped in developing and funding Central Lock, the lockbox company, which is now 100% realtor owned. He was intimately involved in the acquisition of 96,000 square foot building in Cincinnati, which houses the world headquarters of Central Lock. In 2000, Armstrong served as president of the at the Maryland Association of Realtors, where he was the founding chairman of their Partnership for Housing Foundation. So, Bill, I'm going to start with you because you have the most years of service here, and it seems that you have served on just about a lot. I don't want to say every committee, but a wealth of committees. So, Bill, if I was to serve on a committee, what do I get for my investment? Like, if I invest my time to serve on a committee, what do I get in return?
Well, that's a great question. And actually, I have been a part of, because by virtue of being the treasurer, you oversee every committee. So I've popped in and sat in on every committee at NAR. And when I was president of the Maryland Realtors, did that as well. So committee involvement's nothing new to me. Let me tell you, what do you get out of this? I would suggest that everybody else do this in moderation. It's easy to jump in with both feet, but it can consume you. And I didn't do that until I was pretty well along in my career. And so just for what that's worth. Now, I think the biggest takeaways, and I hope that the other panelists will chime in because I'm going to touch on a couple of them. Number one, I think that the biggest advantage you get by involvement at any level of the association is you've got your finger on the pulse of everything going on in the industry. That's invaluable to you. I've always considered real estate to be a crowded profession, but not really all that competitive. And the more you know about the goings on of everything, and I mean advocacy at all three levels, the second century ventures, the things that we're doing with our incubator, RPR, Central Lock, our code of ethics and what that means and how that differentiates us from others. The more you know about all of those things, the more your clients will recognize this person knows what's going on. And you will shine. If other people are only worried about the almighty dollar and the commissions, that's one thing. But you come back from these committee meetings having learned an awful lot about the nuances of our associations. Next, I would say, in terms of benefit, you get to interact with people from all over the country. You're talking about Texas, Florida, California, Nebraska, Wyoming, doesn't matter where. When you get to meet these people, it's so much easier to talk to people from out of the area. You're talking globally with them, and there's just no consideration that you're competing with them. It's a different market altogether, and that's a great thing. I would say also, finally, and then let others weigh in, you really do get a lot of insight, but you make a lot of friends. I've got good long-term friends that I've known for many, many years through NAR. And it's not just networking, they're friendships. So there you go.
That's amazing, Bill. One thing you said was it's valuable, the relationships, the information. And I'm sure you've seen changes like in our systems with lockboxes, MLS, not just to name a few. There's been a lot of things that have changed in our industry, and you seem to have experienced it all. And you seem to be involved in like on the national level and the local level. So Bill, yeah, that's some great information you shared. Allison, would you care to share with us what your experience is?
Yeah, I mean, Bill covered really most of what I would have had to say. So he did a great job. Yeah, the networking has probably been one of the most invaluable resources, not just for referrals, but like Bill said, friendships, but also bouncing ideas off of each other, seeing what's going on in other states. And, you know, is that an issue that we're potentially facing here in Maryland? So all of those things are really valuable. And one of the nice things too is once you become involved, the conferences don't seem so big and daunting when you start going to them, because you really get to know people. Even if it's only 3 people, you'll tend to run into those same 3 people the whole entire conference, and it'll just make everything a lot easier and just more fun. So
yeah, I agree. I've recently attended a few, and I'm new to attending conferences. I feel like I've missed out on so much, but the return of just being at the conference and meeting new people and finding out new ways to practice has been like just amazing to me. Yeah. So Dee Dee, what would you say your turn is for your participation?
So I'm with Bill and Allison, of course, on this, because those are the knowledge. I mean, I sought out to start to get into this volunteer world. Really, it was the knowledge factor. I wanted a seat at the table. I wanted to have my say if I earned that seat at the table. And really just that depth of understanding and opening your mind, hearing from people across the US, working in the same industry, but yet we all work a little differently depending on what region of the country that you're actually selling property. And like Allison said, you know, some of the things that start on the West Coast migrate to the East Coast. And there have been times where at the state level here in Maryland, you know, we're getting wind of certain things that really might be headed our way. And we've had the opportunity to get a jump start on certain items that maybe were a little onerous, and they were things that we knew were not going to be good for our industry here locally. So over the years, I think the initial grab was the knowledge. And then from there, it really developed into these relationships and getting to know people and having that comfort level that if someone asks me for a referral to an agent in, you know, Boise, Idaho, I personally know an agent in Boise, Idaho that I know will take excellent care of them. And, you know, it's somebody that I chat with off and on Facebook or, you know, an email here and there. But we see each other at conference, and that personal connection makes me feel that much better offering clients and, you know, out as referrals. And likewise, they come back to you. And I think that's the forbidden discussion about what really this volunteer world brings you. You don't set out looking for your ROI, return on your investment. It's your investment in time. But at the end of the day, you know, there's some side effects there that really people are going to tend to refer you some business as well. The more involved that you become, they see your work ethic. And they see, you know, how you are on these committees and your contributions. And they look at that and they will seek you out and think, if you do that much here, think what you'll do with someone when I refer them personally to you. So, you know, it starts out one thing, it develops into many, many, many other things in this volunteer world that we participate within.
Totally agree. Chuck, what has been your return?
The ability to, again, connect with my peers. And there are a lot of opportunities for staff. So it's not just the volunteers. And there are a handful of my colleagues on the webinar today, most of whom already know this, but for others who may not, some committees have opportunities for staff. I think virtually all of them at some level, you know, a staff person can be appointed to an NAR committee. So it's outside of the ones just for staff, like the GAD. The GADs have a committee, communications directors have a committee, government affairs directors, so I use acronyms without defining them, but they have their own committees and they do meet at the conferences. And there are others, of course. Education directors have an affinity group, and the sharing of ideas. And I can tell you, every time we have a staff meeting following an NAR, whether it's the May meeting or the annual conference in November, when at our first staff meeting after those meetings, everybody's full of ideas, pages and pages of notes. This is what they're doing in other states. Hey, let's take a look at their website. Like, they just did their website, or they're offering this course or this new designation, or, you know, same thing with my colleagues from the States. And I just come back with way too many ideas.
Yeah.
I know that the staff here does not like when, oh God, Chuck's been away. He's going to come back with with more work for us. But the sharing and the ability to see what other people are doing and not feel so alone, that, you know, we are unique, but we share so many things in common, that it's a good feeling to know that you're not the only one dealing with this issue or that, you know, whether it's independent contractor status or whatever. So that's the thing that I get out of that is the ability to bounce things off people, to see what other people are up to, and bring back the ideas and come back and float them and see what sticks.
Yeah. So new ideas, new innovative ways to run your business, and most
Absolutely.
importantly, new relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, yeah. So if I were to apply.
Sorry, Bill, we can't hear you.
Yeah. Can we
Shamika, I just want to add one thing that wasn't touched on, and that is that Maryland has some great talent. And we need to, in addition to all the benefits that we get as a state association, as realtors here locally in this area, we need to have our views heard and get out there. I thought somebody would touch on that, but I don't want to let it go away. But we need to get out there and let people know that we're players, and that's important. That's it.
But Bill, if I can add to that, I totally agree with you, because I'm at these conferences. I know we do show up there, and there's a lot of us that show up from the state level. However, when you look around those conference rooms, you see other states that's dominating there, and we're a association of many members, and a lot more of us can show up, which is the purpose of why we're here today, just to kind of show and tell what the benefits are of participating on the national level. So that was a great point that you made, Phil.
And let's not forget, our CEO of National Association of Realtors is a Maryland resident.
Yep.
He's from Ellicott City, so
Yep.
he wants us to succeed.
That's true. And actually, one other thing, Shamika, on that point, you're listening into this. Well, maybe you've never actually been to the meetings in May, the legislative meetings, or you've never been to the annual conference in November. Maybe that's your start, right?
Mhm.
You just don't even know anything about where to start to even think that you're going to attend conference. So, reach out to any of us, because we regularly attend conference, and we're happy to kind of have that sit down and discussion and point you in the right direction. And that becomes your basis to start, your volunteer journey at today.
Exactly. That segues me into the next question, because sometimes you don't know, what to do when you get to the committee, or you don't know what your purpose is. So if I'm someone that's interested in applying for a committee, like, where should I start? What should I do first?
I'm going to jump in real quick, even though I'm a little off script, but just wanted to give people an idea of the time frame. So it's coming up, and that's the reason we're scheduling this for today. And then the rest will chime in terms of the expertise profile and the actual process. But I just want to give everybody kind of an idea of what the actual time frame is. This is a document. You can find it on nar.realtor. And if you can search for committee selection process, and you will get, I think there's a link. If not, there will be a link in the chat to it. And one of the things you get to is this document. So the instructions, so start to look for this either at NAR's website or as a member communication from NAR, so that you are prepared to fill out your application. And we'll talk a little bit of, some of these details. We will get into the weeds today. So hopefully that's what you're here for as well, and some very practical tips on what happens next. And so the original, as you can see, this link will take you to the page on the website that has more information. The date to remember is March 1st, because that's when the application website opens, and it runs through May 13th. So you have time, but you do want to, make sure that you're aware of these deadlines, especially when that website closes. And NAR there's a zero tolerance for this. So if you do not, we're kind of used to state and local level where, you miss the committee deadline, committees are already meeting, and you call and say, hey, I wanted to get on that committee. And a lot of times we can accommodate people, not always, but sometimes we can. NAR, there is no accommodation. These deadlines are hard deadlines. So make sure that you're following these deadlines and you're getting your applications, and people will talk about the endorsements and stuff in the expertise profile. Those are the big pieces are the expertise profile, the application for up to 5 committees, and then endorsements. And these guys will help you through the strategies for those, how to complete those 3 pieces by May 13th. And then you can see where there's review of them. There's recommendations. There are some committees that have state representatives, regional representatives, and then a handful of people in the middle of June go to Chicago and plow through these hundreds and hundreds of applications. It's a big, long process. And then the notification first goes to chairs and vice chairs, and then the rest of the membership gets notification in terms of when, what committee assignment they've received. Okay, so those, I just wanted to make sure we had these deadlines in front of everybody. Okay.
So Chuck, is it possible to post that cheat sheet?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is on the website. I'm not sure if you just mentioned
Absolutely.
that.
Yes.
So we can access it. That's a wealth of information. So with all that information, we need to go back and figure out, where do we start? Like, if you're applying for a committee, where should I start? And you just went through a quick run through of that. But Dee Dee, if you can elaborate on what someone should do when they're first applying.
Sure. And Dan did put in the chat, which is available for everybody to see. There's 2 links in there. The one is committee and director appointment timeline, which is the document that Chuck just shared. And then also is information on the committee selection process. So I know some might be watching on your phone, but you can screenshot that if you know how to get to that, or if you click it now, it'll download to your computer and you can refer to that later. So when you first start out, I think for me, the biggest thing is trying to figure out what your passion is and what committee that actually fits into. And years and years and years ago, I don't even remember what year it was right now without looking, but I thought the Professional Standards Committee, I just thought, wow, that's where I want to be. And some people thought, that's a little boring. Why do you want to go there? It was a 3-year appointment. I loved every minute of it because I felt like we were so in the weeds of what was going on in our industry and discussing, how we as practitioners, do our day-to-day business. So that was where I started initially. From there, it's kind of grown into some other pathways. As we've talked earlier, you start to make these connections and these relationships, and others from other committees will start to say, hey, I talked to you about this, but maybe you want to start thinking about this particular committee, or maybe you're approached because, as Shamika just mentioned a moment ago, or I think it was actually on the list that Chuck was just mentioning. I'm sorry, yeah, that was Chuck. That there are certain state appointments that are going to be available in most of the committees. And that might be something that you have an interest in, let's say MLS, because I was the state MLS, one of the appointed ones for that for a while as well. So there's quite a daunting list that you can look at on NAR.Realtor that has a description of every single available committee that's out there. You might want to reach out to one of us and kind of have a discussion with us before you sit down and try to start piecing through that list, because you'll get to about, a third way down and your mind will probably explode because it's way too much information. And there are certain committees that you, in your position, wherever you might be right now in your volunteer world, you may not even be eligible to be on certain committees. So you really don't want to waste that slot when you're applying if it's something that you're not even eligible, or you don't have background experience that is appropriate for that particular committee. Anybody else want to jump in on that one? Bill, you've been in it for a while. Allison as well.
Well, Bill, just because I'm monitoring the Q&A section as well, and I figured you could touch on this. Somebody wanted to know, how did one get appointed, or how does one get selected to a committee, and is expertise solely the decision factor?
You want me to answer that?
Yes.
Okay.
You're the oldest one, so yeah.
Yes, I am, but that's nice of you to point out. Okay, so yeah, there are 1.5 million members of this organization. This is not like at your local or state and they try very hard to let people get a committee appointment, but you have to bring value. You have to look at that committee that you're applying for and say, am I going to bring something to this committee? Because if there are so many other applicants, and I promise you there are a lot, if there's so many others and somebody's got a background, got an MBA in this or taught this, and they know this particular field very, very well, well, they're going to shine, and perhaps you don't make the cut. So it is a competitive thing, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't continue to try and elevate your expertise profile. There are ways to get on committees. You may just not be able, because some committees are so much more popular than others even. So there are ways you can do it. You could be on a forum. You could volunteer for PAGs and advisory groups, work groups, anything like that. But make sure you come back to the national application process, having served in some capacity at your local and state too. So get a bit of a resume, build it up, and maybe just ask, I think Dee Dee said, ask one of us or others who have served on committees what it took to get on a committee like that.
Thanks, Bill.
We
Chuck?
will be posting all of our contact information, all of us here, and the Dee Dee, Bill, Allison, and Shamika, as we mentioned, and Dan and I are also members of a task force, and there are other members, most of whom are actually also on the webinar. So we'll be posting those names and contact information. You can reach out to any of us, reach out to your local AE. Also, all of my colleagues at the local level have vast expertise in all of this, and they can help, and they're a great resource as well. And Allison did mention expertise, and so one of the primary ways that people get to know you is through the expertise profile. And so I think Dee Dee was gonna take us through that as well.
I'm gonna have Allison
Yeah.
more to the expertise profile.
Yeah, and before I start on the expertise profile, just to touch on Deidre's question about should you start on the local level first before applying. So Deidre also had a question as to whether or not, if you're new to the business, do you suggest applying to NAR committees? So this will kind of tie into what I'm going to go over. And then Tom also had a question about diversity and selection. So let me touch on Tom's question, since we were talking about selection process, is that I would think diversity has become one of NAR's core values, but also too, they do select people based on location. So it's not going to be all of Texas serving on one committee. They really try to make sure there's at least one member from every state represented on each committee. That's correct, Bill, right? For the most
best
part.
they can. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if nobody applies, it is what it is. And sometimes even if you don't apply for a committee, you may get placed there, whether they think your profile meets it, or maybe they think it's a great stepping stone for you or something to get your feet wet. I don't know why I muted myself. I guess I was tired of hearing my voice. But so when we talk about the expertise profile, this is a pretty lengthy profile that it's kind of like a dating website. I mean, you're basically, or LinkedIn, let's make it LinkedIn. You're basically putting your resume online for people to review. And I think that before you start applying to committees, which you have to fill this out anyway, it's important, even if you're not going to apply for a committee, to review this profile so that you know maybe where you have some holes in your resume, your volunteer resume, so that you can fill those over the next couple of years. Going back to what Deidre said, it's really important to get involved in your local and state associations, probably even before jumping in at the national level. You'll learn how everything works. You'll make connections, and it'll be more hands-on, honestly, on the local and state level, that you'll feel much more confident when you're applying to some of the national committees. So Dee Dee, do you want to share the screen on how to get to the expertise profile? Okay.
Off
So-
mute. Okay.
So if you go to nar.realtor to start off with, and you can't find the page, you go into the search bar we've learned today and just type in committee expertise profile or selection process.
Yeah, selection process, because I found out the expertise part doesn't get you there.
Of course not.
So then you get here. There we go.
Yeah, so you'll go to committee selection process, and then you'll go to create or edit your expertise profile. So Dee Dee has a great profile. When you go into yours may be blank if you haven't done anything, which is completely fine. And she's going to scroll down. This is the part that you want to review before you start applying to committees. So you can keep scrolling.
Don't forget your picture.
Yeah, don't forget your
Make sure you have a
Right,
picture, 'cause
picture.
people may not know your name, but they may know your face. So it's important to have a good picture.
Allison, do you want me to go into the actual edit part so people can see the check boxes and things that you'll be
Oh,
doing?
yeah.
That'll
That's good.
help, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So like here, you can change your photo.
Yep, and you can check off your professional focus, your memberships. Those are basically designations, area of expertise. This way, when you're applying, or even if, again, you didn't apply for a certain committee, they might place you just based on your profile, thinking you belong on a certain committee over the other. So you can just scroll through it really quick, because I don't know, like already.
And actually too, Bill, like how important is it, the wording and things that you're typing in here to further describe what you're checkboxing here? I would think that they really kind of review those remarks.
They really do. I would say it's very important. Yeah, you're selling yourself. It's a resume.
And it shows you took the time to, make the effort to fill it out. And this won't be the only thing you're filling out, but so if you do it now, or I would start building it now. So, again, treat it like a LinkedIn profile. As you go through your career, your volunteer career through the associations, update this. Even if you're not applying to a committee, this way, when you go to apply, it won't be as daunting, because I can tell you that I had to fill this out and then like 3 other things, and I felt like I was back applying for college. So just, well, we're realtors, so we'll probably wait till last minute anyways, but I'm just, giving you a tip that I don't follow myself. So just to make your life easier.
Realtors only fill out those large contracts. So what, how much time can we actually waste doing that? So, I mean, it's the same.
Right.
It's comparable.
So it's pretty lengthy, and there are areas where you don't have to fill out. I mean, some of them are just not going to pertain to you. So don't feel bad if you have holes in it. I mean, don't feel like you need to go run for public office to get on a committee or anything. It just might not be, right, exactly. It just might not be an area that, you've focused in, and that's fine, but you might have a lot of experience somewhere else. So I think we've covered most of this. Again, you can reach out to us if you want to, if you need help filling this out. But again, it's like LinkedIn. It's just targeted more towards your volunteer real estate world. The nice thing about NAR too is they don't care how many houses you've sold. I mean, they don't care what your volume is. They don't care how many transactions you do a year. I mean, they do, but they don't ask you for that stuff. So don't feel like you have to be, the top agent in the state of Maryland to get on a committee.
Hey, Allison, the last part here about the participation and the level of participation, this is really, I think, important too.
Yeah.
To say the things you're willing to do. I mean, obviously, if you're doing this, you probably would not be checking. I prefer to not participate at this time. And I don't know what other ways there might be, but certainly, you put yourself out. And Allison, I'll share real quick. So when I go and I save, and by the way, I save my profile in every section so that I don't lose things that I might have typed if something happens on my computer. But when you go in and you view it, not in the edit mode, you'll notice like towards the end there, I have some stuff not filled out. They collapse. So you're not going to have like a big blank hole in certain areas that, that you didn't necessarily have things filled in. And then I realized in updating my own, which I had not done for a couple of years, because I was on a multi-year committee, and I just forgot about it because I wasn't actively applying, because I was in a position where I was serving multiple years under that particular appointment. And now there's at the very bottom, there's a place to do in the edit mode, there's a place to upload a video. So that was something new. I don't know when that started. Someone else probably may know that, Joanne, or someone may have noticed that that became a new thing. So I don't know if you want to put a mashup in your expertise profile, maybe not.
Maybe
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, probably not, but it's there.
Tom Daly had asked, so we answered Deidre's question about local level and all that. Tom Daly had asked, is support of RPAC, a criteria? I haven't been on the selection process, so I don't know if they look at that. But what I will say is that the more things that you're involved in and the more you've given back to the association, not in dues or anything like that, the more you're going to be known. So when people see your name come across, if you've been to an RPAC function at the mid-year meetings or what have you, they're going to recognize your name. So any kind of participation you could do. And frankly, I mean, 4 of the committees are related to RPAC. So
More
if
than
you
that.
haven't even given to RPAC, you might want to reconsider applying to that. You definitely want to contribute. I know that some people in some of the RPAC committees haven't been major investors, so that's not a requirement for some of the RPAC related committees, I don't think. But they want to see some level of involvement. And Anita had asked, where do you go on the website for a list? So Dan has put in to the chat, not the Q&A, but the actual chat feature. He put the timeline link there, and he also went ahead and put the information in committee selection process, which, and then he just uploaded some more. So that will have the whole list of committees. And on the back end, we're also working to try to make some kind of little flow chart to help guide you. So, if you haven't been involved in certain things, we'll try to guide you through a flow chart of where maybe you should end up. Or you can talk to any of us or anybody that that serves on NAR committees, and they'll help you. It's apply to 3 and try to in your profile, again, fill it up as much as you can. And again, if you feel like there are a lot of holes, don't be discouraged, but also know that you might just need to work on your resume. It's like applying for a job, and like Chuck says, and Bill have said, they don't just choose anybody. So it's not like, oh, they want a warm body here. So I think
So Allison, Chuck, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, just 2 things real quick. If you go back to the search function at nar.realtor and just type in committee structure, you will get right to the link that has all the list of committees, and each has a mission statement and a composition, and tells you and also who's currently on the committee. So that's always a good resource, because we have Maryland members on most of these committees. And again, we can even hook you up if you want to learn more about what that committee does. Well, first of all, I don't think we mentioned this, but if you do go, one of the best things to do is go to the May meetings. They're right in DC, or go to the NAR annual meeting, wherever it is, and sit in on that committee. Go find that, within the committee or governance schedule, sit in on the committee. That's what I did when I was first looking into professional standards or whatever it was. I sat through several hours of committee meetings just to decide which of the ones I thought would be a best fit for me. So it does take an investment of your time, but you do learn a lot.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing about RPAC, just to clarify, on the expertise profile, there's nothing about your RPAC investments. It's not asking you for that. But I can tell you from personal experience, it is looked at. It is a factor. Even if you're not involved, you're not applying for an RPAC committee, they know your RPAC investment history when they're reviewing you, especially if you have aspirations for leadership, you go a chair or vice chair position, they will know what your RPAC investment history is. And so keep that in mind moving forward. And just to go back to Deirdre's question, yeah, we always say, get involved at your state and local level, but it's not a prerequisite. And you won't see on there for as far as a prerequisite for getting on an NAR committee, that you have served. So some are, but a lot don't. And we do have members, and I know because I look at the lists. I know for a fact that we have several members on NAR committees and have been on these NAR committees for several years who have not been all that involved at the state level. And I assume, probably at the local level, but I know because I know these people and I know their names, and I can tell you they probably, haven't been all that active at the state level, but yet they're still getting NAR appointments. So yeah, do we recommend it? Will it boost your expertise profile? All those things, the answer is yes, but we don't want to leave the impression that it's a requirement, because it's not. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you for that, Chuck. So we received a lot of information, and I know this is a lot to kind of retain. So just remember that all of this will be posted on the Maryland Realtors YouTube site. And you can also contact any of the panelists to kind of go back and get this information. In the interest of time, I'm going to move forward to the next question. And
Gloria made a good point. I'm sorry, Shamika. Gloria made a very good point. When you do go look at the schedule, she's exactly right. Executive committee, finance, legal action, some of those say closed meeting. So even if you are interested in that, you probably can't get into those meetings, in which case we'd recommend that you contact somebody on the committee, because the rosters are available, and especially the staff. And I know one of you are going to touch on this, like how to go about, when you have identified the committee you're interested in serving on, or more committee or committees, what do you do next? And one of the things is obviously meet the chair, vice chair members, and especially staff. But good point, Gloria. Yeah. And real quick while I'm here, and then I'll shut up. Can NAR affiliate members sit on committees? Answer yes.
Thank you, Chuck. Question I have is, how many committees can you apply for? And Bill, I'm going to ask you that question.
You can apply for up to 5 committees. They do require you to put them in a prioritized order, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's an important thing that you do, and they will drop back right away to 2 if one is just a non-starter. And Chuck was just saying this, and you guys are right that RPAC participation is not mandatory. But believe me, when it comes down to there are several candidates left, they start listing the things that differentiate them from the other. And they say, by the way, this person's a member of the RPAC Hall of Fame. And they've been going to national meetings for the last 10 years or 6 years or something. So here's the one thing I would say, I go off on a tangent here. If you're going to go to these, to this level of involvement, I have seen for years, somebody who at the local level goes to their first national meeting and their eyes are opened to what this is all about. It's huge. It's everything with a lot more zeros, I mean, if you're a budget person at the local level, then the state level, go there. And oh my gosh, it's like, this is a big deal at NAR. And one thing I got to tell you, the people in our whole area should absolutely be going to the mid-year legislative meetings. They're right in our backyard. The meetings are free to register for. Go there, look at the trade show, meet some people, see what goes on. Your eyes will open up a little sooner. So let's see, what was my question? Yeah, up to 5 committees.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. So up to 5 committees. Now, is there a stipend or travel lodging?
Can we, before we get to that, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure we're flowing correctly.
We
To
are.
continue, let's on the process before we get to that, because that assumes you're already on a committee. So Bill or Dee Dee or Allison, take us through once you pick your committee, you decide what you update your expertise profile, you submit your up to 5 applications, but you're not done yet. So what's the next step after, once you apply, then what's your next step?
So, well, you haven't applied yet, right? You haven't hit send because you still need some references.
That's where I was taking you. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Al.
I'm good. I don't.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm fine.
Somebody.
All right, well, then I'll jump in.
Someone share.
Okay.
Chuck, you share.
be strategic about that. Go ahead and make sure that you ask somebody that you think is well regarded at the national level, that the people in the committee selection room might know and respect their opinion. Chuck is a good candidate for somebody to write a reference on your behalf. One of us that have been involved nationally, and I've done these for a lot of people over the years, happy to do it within reason. But anyway, it's a good thing to make sure that strategically, if you found somebody on one of the committees that you know from Maryland, they'd be one because they're known at that committee level. The staff person, if you've introduced yourself to them. Anyway, be strategic and get only 3 recommendations. Used to be people would overwhelm you with 10 or 20, but just get 3 but think them through.
Yeah, and they used to, and Joanne Poole commented too that, you know, they're important, but they're not a must, and be strategic, like you said about Bill. And also too, they used to make the deadline after the May meetings for committees, and now they've moved it up to March because people were just getting bombarded at the meeting. So they really want getting bombarded for requests to, you know, can you write me a recommendation? So they really want you to be thoughtful in who you're asking to reference you.
If I could add to that too, don't just pick 3 people, because if someone overlooks the email and or gets really bombarded, I usually ask about double what I'm actually looking for recommendations. And not just somebody on that committee that might be from our state. I know I've connected over the years with people from other areas that are sitting in some pretty, you know, higher seats at NAR, and I have been afforded the opportunity and received their recommendations as well from other states, which has served well. And the other thing too, you know, as Allison just mentioned, they moved it up. You're not chasing people down in person trying to get a handwritten recommendation. This is all a digital submission. So once you've gotten in your expertise profile and then you've picked what you're trying to do, there's an area where you actually go in, and it's really a copy and paste, and you can put the copy and paste link right into your own personal email, send it to the person you're requesting it from, write a nice note to them. Hey, I'm applying for this. I'd really appreciate your recommendation at your time. Call me if you have any questions about my ability to serve on these particular committees. These are the ones that I'm looking to serve on, you know, whichever one it might be. And so you're not, you know, it is a little bit automated there too. You're asking these things via email to whoever it is who's filling out these requests. You're not trying to get a handwritten note from someone.
Yeah, and the recommendation form is all automated too. And you can add, you know, it's some boxes, and then there's a narrative. And on occasion, I've been asked to give recommendations. And in fact, going back to what Dee Dee said, when I click on it, it says this person has already gotten the number of recommendations. So I know that they asked for more, and they're good. So just be prepared for that as well.
Hey, I have a quick one thing, Shamika. Oh, sorry, Allison.
No, go ahead.
So this always comes into my mind, and I don't know if anybody else has thought of this. So if you at this point are on, like you are actually on a sitting committee and it's a multi-year term, are you advised to still continue to apply during that time period that you have that, say, 3-year commitment on a particular committee, just to keep your expertise profile in front of the people who are in those selection committee rooms, because it changes over so frequently? I mean, Bill, do you have a thought on that, or no? Does it muddy the water?
I think you should go ahead and apply. It can't hurt. The leadership has gotten to the point where they're trying to limit everybody to simply one committee because there's so many requests. But they may say, you know what, Dee Dee would be a great fit here. We really ought to put her in there. Or maybe they have for whatever reason, a lack of applications in that particular year and a couple of openings. So I would say to continue to do that. But oftentimes they do consider the fact that you've got a committee that doesn't expire for a year or 2 as your committee. So I don't think it can hurt to put it out there.
Okay, and point taken. I mean, this year that did happen to me. I didn't actively apply because I still had 2 years left on a particular committee. But I received a personal phone call asking, would you be okay if we took you out of that arena and put you in a different one? And of course, I was completely okay with what they were requesting and ecstatic about that. So, so that can happen too. And actually somebody just said, I was wondering about that, about the continuing to apply. So the answer in short would be yes.
Yeah. There is one question in the Q&A that hasn't been answered, which is, do they review applications as they come in or at the deadline?
They collect them all and they review them in a 2-day window in Chicago. Well, now that they're back in meeting, they do it in a room, and the staff people come in, they review, give their thoughts, their input. The leaders look at it, and they look around the room sometimes and say, does anybody know them? And the recommendations and where they came from. It's a process. Everyone is considered sincerely.
And tell you a little secret that is a thing. And even when you ask for recommendations, they could ask, if is there something else, if this person doesn't get this appointment, is there some place else where, their expertise might be of use or of value, I should say, sorry. So it is very possible. And it happened to some of our members very recently, where the member applied for committees and got something for which they didn't even apply. So that is actually a possibility as well.
If I might, one thing with regards to this, we said earlier, make sure you get your 3 recommendations and they're strategic. Please don't think that means it has to be people from Maryland. Chuck, me, Joanne, Dee Dee, Allison, Shanika, don't limit it. If you know that the incoming president is, for example, Leslie Ruda Smith is our president now. She's from Texas. My gosh, you want to get somebody that has a great rapport with her to be one of your strategic recommendations, or the next person coming online, Kenny Parcells from Utah. So you sit there and you say, I know Russ Booth, he's a past president from Utah, and Kenny would think highly of his recommendation. So think about this. And if you need more direct counseling on that, reach out to one of us, but don't just say it all needs to come from Maryland. You can get some powerful recommendations from somewhere else.
Yeah. And to touch on what Bill's saying, a lot of this might seem daunting and it might seem overwhelming, and it might sound like we're speaking a different language, honestly, up here. Once, even if you haven't served on an NAR committee, just getting involved at your state level and in your local, and just simply attending the annual conference and going into classes. It's not just all about meetings. There's classes, there's professional development courses there, and there's little happy hours, networking events. You'll meet people, and those will be your connections and how you get somewhere. It's not going to be just within your state. So, but that's how you meet people without having served on a committee previously. And then, these names like Kenny Parcell and Leslie Ruda Smith won't sound like who are they. You'll know who they are just by going to a conference, and they're in really fun locations. Do we have the list of where they're going next? Orlando is November.
Orlando, November.
May.
And then it's in Las Vegas. And I got to tell you, they go, just a lot of people aren't aware of this or haven't thought about it, but they go East Coast, West Coast, East Coast, West Coast. So they mix it up that way. And there are only so many cities that can take care of us because we're a large group, and we'll get larger again. It dropped off quite a bit last year, but
yeah, I think we're back to Boston in 2025, if I recall.
Or
right.
24 or 25, it's Boston, yeah.
So, and getting involved is a great way to be able to travel places. And so Bill, can go.
And check with your tax advisor because it may be tax deductible.
Yep.
Notice how I hedge on that.
Yeah. So that kind of brings me to my next question. Is there a financial stipend for traveling and lodging when you're on the NAR committee?
Generally not. Generally, the committees, the majority, go on during the NAR mid-year legislative meeting or at the annual conference. There are certain committees that are off cycle. I'm on the Reserves Investment Advisory Group, and we've got a meeting in week and a half in Chicago. So we go, they fly me there, economy, they feed me well. That's kind of about it. They take care of my taxi in, and you know, it's important that, you know, some committees need to be off cycle. There are others, the strategic advisory or strategic thinking group, they meet and it's like a 2-day opportunity to get in front, and everybody breaks out into groups and does all this. And there are a couple of others off the top of my head, I don't know. But generally speaking, the committees are done during the governance section of these meetings. Allison, you're laughing. What's
Oh, we're just having a side chat here about what year is it? Because I said 2025 for Boston because I was thinking, I don't know what year it is now, but so Chuck had said something funny, but
The
oh,
next
one
6 years are in the chat.
sorry, I know you were talking about traveling and stuff. It made me think of this also too. So I had never served on an NAR committee until I had actually done the NAR Leadership Academy. So if that's another way to get involved without not having this huge extensive resume. And I have to say that if I did it in 2017, I applied in 16. And so it was for the 17 class. I think except for maybe 1 or 2 people, nobody was really involved at the national level. And there weren't a ton of state presidents in my actual class too. So it's really a good way to meet people that can help you to get on a committee in the future. And it's a less judgmental in the way as looking at your resume, because they're trying to develop leaders. Whereas the committees are, all right, you've developed as a leader, we're taking you even more to the next level. And so I also bring that up because they just opened application for it for the NAR Leadership Academy. And you don't have to have gone to your state or local one in order to get picked. And it's not always people where they're like, do you know this person? Because you're going to do an in-person interview too for the NAR Leadership Academy. So they get to know you on that level as well.
I think the deadline is what, mid-February for that application? Yeah.
Something like that.
I think it's February 14th.
Okay.
Oh, someone put in the chat,
Oh.
Jessica, that's Maryland's Leadership Academy application
Yeah.
process that
Yeah.
has already passed. We're talking about NAR's actual application process. They just opened, and the deadline, I believe, is the 14th of February.
All right. So Bill, I was going to ask, if you don't get accepted on a committee, like what should you do? And I believe we all pretty much touched on that for the most part by, inputting as much information on your expertise profile. Maybe you'll get selected for a PAG or a task force or something else. So does anyone else want to just add to that again or reiterate that if you don't get selected for a committee, there's still other opportunities?
Well, as Chuck said, okay, first off, go to the national meetings. You're going to be left behind if you don't keep going to those. So if you're interested in committee involvement or leadership of any kind, you really do need to go to these national meetings. At a minimum, go to the Washington meetings, which are now at National Harbor starting this spring. But Chuck touched on it. There are a couple that are closed meetings because there's sensitive discussions going on. The Finance Committee is a closed meeting. The Executive Committee is a closed meeting. And there are a couple of others that are, where they're reviewing applications of states and individuals and all that. Not everybody's privy to that. But even finance, you can go to the Treasurer's Budget Forum and you can introduce yourself to the CFO, to the current treasurer, to their vice chairs, and to the other treasurers around the country who go. I go every year just to be respectful of my treasurers that have come before or after me, generally after me. So bottom line, go to those meetings, make sure that you introduce yourself to the vice chair and the chair. That's very important. And the staff person. Stroke them a little bit and say, listen, I really love this committee. I would love to be a part of this. And then they maybe remember you. Maybe you have to do it again the following year. And you get in there and same thing. You're at these meetings, they start saying, boy, that person keeps pestering me after the meetings. But let them know you enjoy the meeting. You've got a background in this area or that. And eventually it could happen. And I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it won't. But your chances are better if you do some things along those lines.
Okay, Chuck, thank you, Bill. Chuck, can you share with us the time commitment of this all?
Sure, and everybody else can jump in as well. The minimum is 2 meetings in May and November. So just to be clear, the NAR governance timeline, the officer and committee year begins, let's just say December 1st. For it's simple, it's more than that, but let's just say basically it starts December 1st. So you go through all this process and actually go to the November meeting. That's actually wrapping up the previous year. So you get on your committee, if you look at the committee structure and look at the membership, it says term, and the term, you'll see it starts December 1st. And if it's a 1-year term, 2021 ends 2022. That's the 2022 elective year or committee year, governance year. Okay. So the May, even though you get your committee appointment, your first meeting won't be till the following May. But you will hear from the committee. You'll be on the hub. You'll get, we haven't talked about the hub. All the communications from NAR are through the hub. And you get they will put your name in, and I'm on the Public Policy Coordinating Committee. I have a 2-year appointment that started December 1st. And I get a weekly consolidated update. And so we're very involved. Even if we may not meet in person till May, there are communications and documents to review and people to meet and get comfortable with. Some committees will, in fact, break up into subcommittees and work groups, and you will actually be asked to attend virtual meetings and some even in-person meetings in between the May and November meetings. So that's a question to ask, obviously, to be able to quantify your time commitment, because I know at Maryland Realtors, we take very great pains to say, please get involved. And the first question they ask, rightly so, is number 1, what's in it for me? And number 2, what's the commitment? And so understand what the time commitment is. At least 2 meetings a year, and depending on the committee and whether it has subcommittees or work groups, very likely you could have meetings in between the May and November meetings. So it's going to be a few hours a month. It's never going to be overwhelming, and it's all volunteer. So if it's too much, it's okay. When we always understand, if taking on a commitment and then realizing it may be too much, that's okay. But, find out as much about it and ask for a quantification of the time commitment before you apply is a very important step. I don't know if you guys want to, add anything to that.
Dee Dee?
Yeah, I will just real quick. Chuck makes great points there. And I know early in my business moving here, I moved here, I didn't know anybody, right? Like volunteering was like the last thing on my brain because frankly, I just needed to make money, right? Let's face it, that's what we're doing. We sell real estate, we want to get paid. So, it took a few years. That it was back in 2000 and probably wasn't until about 2003 or 4 that I applied for a local committee, and I started there. And it wasn't, it was like 1 meeting a month and you only had to go to your local board, and it wasn't a real big commitment. And then it kind of built from there, and you add on, and maybe you're at a point where you're trying to look to build a small team, or you have resources to help you with your business so that you can step back a little. But maybe you're somebody who, you just, you're building a family too at the same time. And that's busy too. I feel like my family has grown and everybody's seen them this entire leadership journey from no kids to 2 kids. And here I am now, but it's, it's your personal journey, and it's what you're comfortable with. And like Chuck said, understand the commitment level and see how that really fits in. And that may lead you towards certain committees that you might want to be on, because there are less active committees and then there are more active committees. And that goes for your local and at the state level too, with the amount of meetings and the things that you're obligated to attend. So you just, you got to look at it holistically and look at your life and how that needs to fit in. I will tell you, I think after all these years, it's rewarding. I mean, it really is to sit back and really internalize the relationships that I have been able to make and build and continue, locally and abroad. It's incredibly, and I'm sure Bill, you even more so with all of your involvement. But it gives you a real sense of satisfaction and accomplishment, and it's special. It's very special to me.
Allison or Bill, is there anything you'd like to share in closing? Allison, you're good. Thumbs up means you're good. Okay. How about you, Bill?
I've said plenty. You got to leave them hanging so they can want to come back to the webinar number 2.
I agree. Chuck, you good? I can't hear you.
Thank you. Please feel free to reach out. Everybody knows hopefully how to reach me. And we will also be posting a lot of this information, including contact information for members of the task force who are willing to guide you through the process. And we look forward to your continued engagement. Thanks, everybody. 70 people hung in there, so we really do appreciate that. It's an excellent turnout. Thank you so much.
Again, I share Chuck's sentiments. Thanks everyone for joining. I want to especially thank our panelists, as you took time out of your busy schedule to be with us here today. And again, giving service, educating those that are on their path to leadership. So I thank you all for joining, and I thank you all for sharing. Until next time, see you all later.
Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you, Shamika, for your moderation, and come back next time for our next webinar, which will be announced soon. Have a great day. And we look forward to you applying by May 13th for the NAR deadline for their committees and at-large appointments. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks.